Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Nice one. Sad the military ran another smart person out while continuing to let the inmates run the asylum. Hope all goes well for you, OP. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. As a soldier, my unit didn't respect my sleep time. They do now. About 15 years ago, I was in the Army and I had what we'll call a very unique skill set. There were several people in my unit with that specific skill set, but for some odd reason, all of the hot 20 to 26-year-old females got Monday to Thursday shifts and had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, while guys like me got Thursday to Monday night shifts, despite having seniority over some of the ladies in both rank and time on mission. To make things worse, administrative staff like our commanding officer and platoon sergeant, bosses, worked Monday to Friday and weren't willing to budge on us being active during their work hours. This meant that quarterly training, like PowerPoints we had to watch for sexual harassment, typically occurred both on my day off and in the middle of my sleep time. Given that I worked 16-hour shifts and the round trip to base was an hour, I was perpetually sleep deprived. Even if I got off of work on time and went straight home, I could get optimistically 6 hours of sleep per day between driving, eating, and showering. This went on for years over my objections. I literally went nearly 2 years without a day off concurrently with my wife, a day worker. Interestingly, the Army did a study demonstrating that after 18 hours of consciousness, you make the same number of stupid and careless mistakes as if you were legally intoxicated. Sadly, no one told my PSG, platoon sergeant, aka boss. He decided that sleep deprivation didn't matter. In fact, one day when I was transitioning from a junior enlisted, technically a specialist, but if you're not familiar with Army ranks, think private, to an NCO, sergeant. My PSG decided I needed some NCO responsibilities. Reasonable. We were having a range day. We had to qualify annually with the M16 rifle, and we needed a duty driver to shuttle soldiers back and forth from the barracks. I was voluntold. Suffice to say, I was on loan to a certain agency, and I needed to put in an OPS release to miss work. It was rejected due to staffing issues. At the time, there was no one else available that could do a certain thing that I could do. I told my PSG, and he informed me that the OPS release was a courtesy. I was going, and it would only take 8 to 10 hours. But Sergeant, I tried to explain, I worked 16 straight hours leading up to the start of this driving, and I'd have to work another 14 straight hours at the end of it. On top of that, as driver, I'd be driving soldiers down winding roads I'm not familiar with in a van bigger than anything I've ever driven before while half asleep. Then at the end of what would be a 40-hour shift, I'd need to drive 30 minutes to get home. Does that seem safe? Safe? Specialist OP, do you think the soldiers in Iraq right now are safe? As I said, about 15 years ago. Well, no, but at least they're getting hazard pay. You're dismissed, Specialist. So, what could I do? I only fell asleep twice while driving, and both times were at stoplights. I also made every single passenger aware of my sleep situation. Keep in mind I was already sleep deprived coming into this, so they made sure to chat with me, bring me coffee, and do other things that decrease their chances of dying in that van. Around hour 38 of this 40-hour shift, redacted, an important person, swung by my place of duty to check on something. I was literally standing up, leaning against a cubicle, eyes closed, basically asleep, with 4 empty quad coffees. If Starbucks had a size above venti, it would be quad, sitting on my desk. Per tradition, there was an NCO with the VIP officer. I got chewed out backwards, forward, sideways, upside down, and in dimension I was hitherto not aware of. By military protocol, the NCO beside the angry officer did the chewing out. He threatened me with actual dereliction of duty charges as well. This ended with, "Now explain to me, Specialist, why on God's green earth do you think it's okay to sleep on duty?" So I explained to him that I was literally semi-conscious on my feet. I'd drunk so much coffee I'd started having heart palpitations and decided to stop, and that it was hour 38 on duty and I was simply at my limits. I cannot stress enough that important people cared about what I was doing. A lot. Really important people. At this point, the officer stepped in. "You've been doing this for 38 straight hours?" So I explained to her how I had to drive a van around during my sleep time, and this important mission had informed my unit that I was irreplaceable, but my unit decided it was critical that I, specifically the guy with the irreplaceable skill set who was working shift, be the duty driver that day. I further explained how this wasn't that uncommon. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd had a week where I was allowed to sleep during my sleep time for the entire week uninterrupted. The number of silly things I had to do instead of sleeping was mind-boggling. Who's your commanding officer? I tried not to smile and told her, "Carry on, specialist." Needless to say, by lunchtime, aka the equivalent of maybe 1 a.m. for me, I got a phone call. Report to the PSG's office right now. I sighed. To say that I was sleepy was something of an understatement, and keep in mind I got home around 8 a.m. and had to work again around 4 p.m. The round trip to base alone would take an hour, plus I had to get dressed, be presentable, and deal with their nonsense, then undressed again afterwards, then dressed again and drive back. Please explain to me why the Command Sergeant Major of Redacted just chewed me out over our in-house scheduling decisions. So I told him what happened. You told the Redacted of Redacted that? Should I have lied to my mission commander about my level of readiness, Sergeant? He turned red, like Santa's cheeks, not a Norse berserker. No berserker-like traits at all. Nope. I took a totally professional step backwards. He was about 6'2" and 250 pounds of NCO, and I felt like I was hogging all of his oxygen. Get out! So I did. It came down from on high that our unit was to have 2 quarterly training days henceforth. No more waking his shift workers up 1 to 2 times per week every freaking week for administrative crap, period. All missions were informed that our soldiers would be doing one of the 2 training days, pick one. Happy ending, right? Yeah, that's never how it works in the military when you get someone above you in trouble. What's the nastiest, stupidest duty you can imagine giving someone that was stateside in a strategic unit? The urinalysis guy. For those of you that don't know, it's his duty to plan and execute urinalysis. This requires literally looking at your fellow soldiers' junk because there are a variety of products that can fool a urinalysis, and the only way to... You know what, just trust me, it's nasty. Fortunately, there was a loophole. You see, the powers that be are aware of the good old boys system that develops sometimes in the Army, and it's really, really important that the guy with the grenade launcher isn't also on crack. As a result, per regs as they existed at that time, and maybe even now, if the urinalysis guy calls a urinalysis, it takes a full bird colonel to cancel it. That's one step down from a general. That's right, when the urinalysis guy decides it's time for the monthly urinalysis, wake up, get in uniform, drive to where he says it's happening, and God help you if you've got alcohol or something in your system. To make matters worse, for them, a friend of mine, let's call him Kroger, had been punished for having alcohol in his system during one of their urinalysis. It was his day off because he was a shift worker, and it was during hours that were duty hours for the day workers, but off duty for us. I had about a year left, no intention of re-enlisting, and my unit had already been slapped down by angry people for mucking with me. Okay, let's do this. Imagine this. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday on a long weekend. Long for them, not me. You see, shift workers didn't get holidays off unless we took leave, and I needed mine for family time like Thanksgiving and Christmas, because without it, I'd have been working every single holiday. The mission must go on, after all. Now, anyone that's ever seen an Army movie knows that Joes like booze, and anyone that's ever had to do a urinalysis knows that they can detect alcohol. Mind you, being a urinalysis guy is a big deal. You're on legal orders and everything, entered into Big Army's database. Between the time I began the formal process of calling a urinalysis and the time I would have them coming in, 3 a.m. on their days off, since they'd established the precedent that soldiers don't get days off whenever we complained about losing sleep to stuff like this, my orders vanished. To this day, I don't know how they did it. I suspect that our CEO or some other bigwigs were at a party or something and realized that they were about to have to explain to a full bird colonel how half the unit pissed in hot during a urinalysis, which would have legally required, that a colonel having a one-on-one chat with me about why I chose that time, and perhaps a discussion about how the unit was being run. Yeah, they never gave me another duty the entire time I had left in the Army. I never had issue with another leave request, and they generally just left me alone. At the time, I thought it was because I made my point that I was sick of their crap, But looking back, I wonder who would have come up positive for what specific illegal substances during that surprise urinalysis such that they were unable to rescind my big army orders in less than 1 day, and in the middle of the night at that. And our next story. Neighbor moves after I install a camera. I live in a semi-detached house and share a driveway. When I first moved in, an older British couple lived next door. I got along with them great. Then the wife passed and the husband moved to an apartment and sold the house to someone I'll call Sarah. Initially, there were no issues with Sarah, and sometimes she did things that annoyed me. However, for the most part, I was able to ignore her and her extended family. On one occasion, I found the roof of my spouse's car dented after it was left on the street. On another occasion, I found damage to my spouse's car, and the easiest explanation was if someone backed out of Sarah's driveway without looking. I didn't have any firm evidence, just circumstantial evidence. So I installed a camera, no audio, just video, on my street that looked out over the shared driveway and the street. I then went and told all my neighbors about the damage to the car and the new camera. Nobody verbalized any concerns, and nobody admitted to the damage. By the end of the next week, Sarah listed her house for sale, and it closed quite quickly, and I had a new neighbor. Now, Sarah was a retailer and should have known the law about vacating her old house, but she was still making trips with her stuff long after the new owner showed up. Sarah ended up suing the new owner because she had left stuff behind that she was trying to recover. On one morning as I was leaving for work, I saw the legal papers on the windshield of the new owner's car, so I made a point of asking about them. This is when I learned about all the drama and the ongoing issues. The new owner indicated that they were going to have to document everything to defend themselves in court. This is where the revenge came in. I asked if the new neighbor wanted video footage. I provided footage of multiple loads of furniture being moved past the deadline. I provided footage of Sarah's sister sneaking across my property to try and serve the new neighbor, and then illegally leaving the paperwork on the car. I also provided footage of Sarah driving by at random times. With the footage that I provided, the case was awarded to my new neighbor that had to countersue Sarah. Nice way to start a great relationship with your new neighbor. Well done. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.